The moment I saw three animal control trucks surrounding my house at the exact same time, my 10-year-old son collapsed without his diabetic alert dog at his side. I made a phone call that turned our quiet little neighborhood of Maplewood Heights into a full-blown federal crime scene. What happened in the next 8 minutes would expose the most dangerous HOA president in America and unmask a domestic terror network that had been hiding in plain sight. Before I tell you how a simple neighborhood dispute spiraled into a national security threat, I want you to know why stories like this matter. If this one strikes a chord with you, that thanks button down below helps me keep bringing stories like this to light, because sometimes the most ordinary communities hide the most extraordinary secrets. Now let me tell you exactly how this nightmare began. My name is Ezra Blackthorne, and 6 months ago, I honestly thought the biggest challenge in my life was helping my son Kieran manage his type 1 diabetes while keeping up the whole international risk assessment consultant cover story for my neighbors. The truth was a lot more complicated, but out here on the tidy streets of Maplewood Heights, simple explanations kept every conversation short and raised fewer questions. Nobody in our neighborhood knew that all those business trips I took weren't about corporate security audits. They were about tracking down threats that keep regular families awake at night. Kieran was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when he was just 6, and our world got turned upside down in ways I never could have imagined. Constant blood sugar checks, counting every unit of insulin, always watching for that terrifying drop that can come out of nowhere at any time with no warning signs at all, especially if I'm not right there to catch the subtle signals of an oncoming crisis. That's when Zara came into our lives. She's a 3-year-old Belgian Malinois mix with these unbelievable amber eyes and what honestly feels like a supernatural sense for picking up on chemical changes in Kieran's blood before even the most advanced medical tech can catch it. Zara's not just a pet, she's a highly trained diabetic alert dog, her nose able to detect tiny scent changes that mean Kieran's blood sugar is getting dangerously high or low. Her training was intense, her certification is extensive, and her bond with my son is unbreakable. All the neighbors saw was a well-behaved dog that hardly ever left Kieran's side. What they didn't see were the countless times Zara woke us up at 2 a.m. because she sensed a drop, or how she could alert us to a spike 30 minutes before Kieran ever felt a thing. In the 18 months since Zara finished her specialized training, Kieran hadn't had a single diabetic emergency. His confidence grew from terrified to tough as nails. The papers Zara carries are 100% legal, though they include details most civilian service dogs don't need. Her training records are way more detailed than a typical therapy animal, and her ID tags have a few federal markers I always hoped no one would ask about. But all that technical stuff never seemed relevant in our peaceful suburb, where the biggest arguments are usually about fence heights and mailbox rules. That peace shattered the day Cordelia Ravenrest decided Zara was a threat to her carefully controlled world. Cordelia had run our HOA with ruthless precision for 3 years, turning what should have been a friendly community association into her own private surveillance network. She lived in the crown jewel of the neighborhood, a colonial mansion with such perfect landscaping, it made everyone else's house look like a fixer-upper. Her cars were spotless, her designer suits never had a wrinkle, and her smile was as cold as a January morning. Even the first time I met her, I thought there was something strange about how much Cordelia knew about every single person in Maplewood Heights. She kept detailed files on every family, did what she called neighborhood background research, and somehow knew an alarming amount about legal procedures and regulatory frameworks. For someone whose expertise was supposed to be community event planning, her obsession with administrative details definitely raised some questions I mentally filed away for later. The first showdown happened on a Wednesday afternoon late in September. Kieran and Zara were at the community pool, nothing fancy, just a well-kept spot where kids played and parents watched from cushioned benches. My son was actually having fun that day, laughing as he practiced backstrokes while Zara watched from the poolside, absolutely focused. The air was warm, the other families looked relaxed, and for a split second I let myself check encrypted messages on one of my security devices. That peace vanished when Cordelia walked over with her signature predatory stride, her heels clicking on the concrete with military precision. She wore this ivory blazer that probably cost more than a month's groceries and carried a leather briefcase that looked both expensive and intimidating. Her approach was carefully timed right as all the parents were gathering after school. "Mr. Blackthorne," she said, her voice ringing across the pool with deliberate volume, "we need to discuss your pet situation." The way she emphasized pet situation made my jaw tighten, but I kept my face neutral. Years of keeping up covers had taught me how to control my reactions, even when every instinct screamed danger. "What's going on, Cordelia?" I asked, slipping my phone into my jacket pocket while holding eye contact. That device was one of 4 I carried on me, a necessity that sometimes got odd looks from observant neighbors, but I always chalked it up to international business. "That dog presents legal complications for our community," she declared, gesturing at Zara like she was some wild predator, not a service animal calmly lying by the pool. "I've reviewed the federal regulations regarding therapy animals in residential complexes with shared amenities, and I believe her paperwork might not meet our specific zoning requirements." That statement set off alarms for several reasons. First, she knew way too much about service dog law for an HOA president whose job should be landscaping standards and architectural guidelines. Second, she was questioning Zara's legitimacy in front of Kieran, who'd stopped swimming and was watching us with rising anxiety. Third, her language showed she was familiar with federal terminology most civilians never use. "Zara is a federally certified diabetic alert dog," I answered carefully. Watching my son move toward the edge of the pool, Zara instantly repositioning so she'd be within reach. "Her paperwork exceeds every legal requirement for public access and residential accommodation." Cordelia's smile turned sharper, like a knife finding its mark. "Perhaps, but I have contacts who can verify these things properly through the appropriate channels. I'll need complete vet records, training certificates, supporting documentation, and proof of insurance within 72 hours. She paused, eyes flicking to the visible gadgets under my jacket. "Your frequent travel schedule suggests you might not always be around to supervise properly." That comment made the alarms in my head blare. How did she know my travel schedule? I'd worked hard to keep it unpredictable, switching departure times, using different vehicles whenever possible. Either Cordelia spent a lot of time watching, or she had access to information no HOA president should have. Before I could respond, Kieran experienced something that hadn't happened in months. The signs came on fast. Rapid breathing, pale face, that lost, scared look that meant his blood sugar was crashing faster than his body could handle. My son's distress kicked Zara into action. She left her post and moved to his side with practiced, gentle precision, providing steady pressure therapy and the calming presence that saved him so many times before. Watching my son go through a medical emergency while Cordelia stood there with this obvious sense of satisfaction convinced me this woman was more than just an overzealous community manager. She was deliberately targeting my son's vulnerability, and that crossed a line I could never ignore. As Zara worked to stabilize Kieran, I noticed Cordelia discreetly taking photos of the interaction on a device that looked more advanced than any normal smartphone. "Kieran, let's go get some water," I said quietly, helping him out of the pool while Zara kept her protective post. The episode passed quickly thanks to Zara's early intervention, but a handful of families had watched the whole thing, their faces ranging from worried to curious. "Interesting response," Cordelia remarked, jotting notes in her folder. "Very specialized training for such a simple service dog." Her tone made it clear she suspected Zara's abilities went way beyond diabetic alert, which was concerning for reasons I couldn't yet explain.